Welcome to the Jerich Show, featuring your hosts, Javvad Malik and Erich Krohn. Timely topics, poorly presented.
Hello, happy Friday or whatever day you're watching this. This is the Jerich Show. I am Javvad Malik, and alongside me, as always, is the lovable, huggable darling that is known as Erich Krohn. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, I guess.
Yeah, cool. So this is a bit of a surprise because for Erich at least, and a bit for me because we're changing things up a bit. We don't have a guest for this week, but we're going to go through the news. Some of the prominent news stories of this week. And normally what we do, we will get together half hour before the show. We'll go through each of our lists. We'll figure out what other stories we want to talk about. But, you know, we also want to show that we're more than just pretty faces that can rehearse stuff and say things off the, off a script. So what we are doing this week is what I'd like to call, I haven't read the story, but here's what I think based on the headline. So the first story is Erich Krohn, privacy-focused search engine DuckDuckGo grew by
DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo grew by 62% in 2020. Is it a surprise to you?
No, I think people are more worried about their privacy and what they're searching, and you know, when they're looking to do insurrections or something like that, they don't necessarily want Google to know. That's my guess. That's what's driving all this is all the political stuff. Yeah.
Do you think like targeted ads have anything to do? Oh, that's a nice, pretty graph they have on.
Oh, that is a pretty graph. That's gorgeous. Yeah. Queries in millions. Wow.
So have you actually tried to Google something? Have you ever tried to search for something on the internet using one search engine and then finding completely different results on another? It's quite fascinating, actually. I think we're so used to sticking to the one that we are used to, and for most people it is Google, but it is quite fascinating. You get different perspectives when you use different search engines, and I suppose privacy is just another thing. This is really funny. My phone, I mentioned Google's name and it just triggered the OK Google.
So I think what's interesting here is you know, search engines like Google, we don't think about it, but they're ad driven, right? So they're driven by people buying ads in these things. And so the results that you get are going to be the results that they want to send you, oftentimes going to be based on probably ad revenue or people that have, you know, it comes up as sponsored. Their algorithm is twisted like that, which is why if you do the same search on a couple of different search engines, you will get different results. I mean, that's a key reason. But they're going to tell you what you want to end up seeing, or what they want you to see, which is kind of disturbing. So it is kind of good to use a couple of those rather than just one.
It is, especially when you see so many of the ads on Google are even they're very disguised. You can't even tell straight off the bat that it is a sponsored ad or something that's been paid for. It's quite nicely blended into everything else.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, next story. FBI disinformation campaign seeks to exploit Capitol siege. This is something that happens down your neck of the woods, didn't it?
Yep.
So what do you make of this? Disinformation, misinformation. This has been a big thing for a while.
So the first thing I want to point out about this headline is it is not an FBI disinformation campaign. Right? Depending on how you read that. Right. But yeah, disinformation campaign. You know, we've been seeing that all year. That's nothing new from last year. And this, you know, I don't want to sound tinfoil hatty, but we are all different nations, and there is like a warfare and espionage and spying and stuff going on across all sorts of ways between us and Russia and China and them and us, and you know, just all that kind of stuff really does happen. And so this has been happening. It's been going on, and we've seen evidence of that. I think in one of our earlier shows, we talked about some of that too, where they were showing that some of the same accounts were sending out these like crazy stories on both sides. but then they get picked up and amplified by people, and then it becomes fact. And then that's how these disinformation campaigns work. So I think it's honestly just more of the same. I think it's just there to kind of keep everybody, pit against each other, honestly.
Yeah. We should actually invite someone that's an expert on disinformation and these sort of psyops campaigns onto the show. I think Rosa would make actually a good candidate.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I agree.
We'll see. Okay, FBI again. Now they're not carrying out the vishing, but they're warning people that there are vishing attacks, stealing corporate accounts, and vishing is basically voice phishing. Don't ask me who comes up with these terms, but we just adopt whatever the industry adopts. But it's basically someone phoning up and phishing you on the phone. They're scamming you on the phone. They say, "Hey, hi, I'm calling from IT. Some issues with your account. What domain are you logging onto? What's your ID? Can you verify what your password is?" That kind of thing. Or they can use it as parts of a layered attack where they'll say, where they phone you, claim to be from IT, say, "Okay, I'm now sending you an email." And what that does, it just adds that bunch of legitimacy to it. Actually, just yesterday, I raised a ticket with IT, and they were sorting something out for me, and they said, "Okay, I'm through the ticketing system." They said, "We'll send you an email with some information in it," and that didn't come through. So I looked in my spam folder, and lo and behold, it had gone into the spam folder. But because I had already engaged with them and I was expecting it, it automatically I was more trusting of that email than had it just arrived into my spam folder. So I think this kind of attack is we're going to see more and more of them, just in terms of these layered attacks where they'll phone you, they'll text you, they'll send you an email, they might send you a deep fake of some sort. But all of this collectively, it just adds to the con. It creates that environment that to condition people to be used to it.
Well, I tend to call these hybrid attacks. And the way that I look at that is, they're different mediums coming in. And what it does is each different medium that they hit you up on lends credibility to the other one. And so before you know it, you believe the thing because you're like, "Oh, who would email me and text message me that this is going on?" And so I do find it funny, this headline. I am shocked to hear that vishing campaigns are working, right? Come on, really, this is how Twitter happened. This is one key thing in Twitter. Hey, this is the IT team. We need to blah, 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 blah. Dude, that is just so much of what goes on. Look at our interview with Elif. It's what she does. It is just so, it works. Why is this a headline, honestly?
It is. I think what's really interesting is towards the end, they also talk about how the techniques have been used a lot to bypass the second factor in multi-factor authentication. So they might have your username and password from a previous dump or something, but they won't have your token. And that's where the vishing really comes in. So they can phone you up and say, "Hey, we're about to send you a text with a code in it. Can you read it out for us?" And at that point, they'll try to enter and you read it back. And within the 60 seconds, if they input it, they'll have access to your account. So this is something our good colleague Roger Grimes has spoken extensively about. That multi-factor authentication, absolutely. No one's saying don't do it. Absolutely implement it, but you got to be aware that that's where a lot of the attacks will go to.
Yeah, you can't just drop the mic and walk away and think you're secure because you have MFA. You're like, "Oh, that's fixed." No, not happening.
A Chinese hacking group is stealing airline passenger details. Who's flying these days?
Yeah, both people that have flown have their details. So, folks, remember, I have not seen these. Javvad has had the.
No, I've not seen these either.
Oh, okay. Well, because you pointed out in the last one, you're like, "And down here it says." Come on, man. I actually saw this and I thought about this, and this kind of goes back to even the Marriott hack, right? So the idea behind this was they're trying to steal this information to look at movements of potentially interesting people, if you will, right? And you remember the same thing happened with Marriott. They were looking for where people were staying. They were looking for the potential of uncovering moles and spies by these trends through that kind of stuff. So they were using that information for a lot of that. And my understanding is they were using the same sort of thing here to look at their travel schedules too. That was the idea behind this. So this is like serious, like, espionage type stuff, as far as I understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what? This reminded me of this other story. We might have spoken about it before, but let me just pull up the story. There's an Australian hacker who goes by the name of Alex, who said that they browsed Instagram, they found ex-PM's boarding pass, and they found out absolutely everything about it. We'll put this in the show notes. It's an absolutely entertaining, brilliant, and scary read. But there's a lot of information held by airlines that you wouldn't think. So even weird things like, sometimes you can choose your meal preference. You can save that and say like it's a kosher meal. You can or a halal meal. You can automatically figure out what religious sort of background that person belongs to, or if they have any nut allergies or what have you. So there's a whole ton of other information that's held in these systems that we don't always think about.
After the movie Airplane, I always say, not the fish.
Wow, you're dating yourself there. That joke reference is lost on about 80% of our audience.
Great movie years ago if you like really slapstick stuff. Airplane.
Yeah, the whole Police Squad series was great as well. Okay, 70% of UK finance industry hit with cyber attacks in 2020. I suppose because I'm in the UK, you're going to look to me to provide some commentary.
No, I'll throw this out there. I don't know where you got these headlines. Were you going for like most obvious things ever? Right? Like, oh my gosh, financial institutions, they're trying to get into those. Why would they ever attack financial institutions? Right? I mean, shocker.
I have this headline generator roulette machine that stories for me. Okay. Okay. 1.9 million. See, now this wasn't expected. Pixlr user records for free on forum. What is that website, Pixlr?
I have no idea. I was hoping you knew.
Okay, it's a very popular
online photo editing application.
Editing application with many of the same features found in a professional app like Photoshop.
Interesting.
So people were like, hey, we now know you were editing photos, Erich. Bad boy.
I guess it depends on what photos you're editing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We could have another iCloud spill here or something. I don't even know. I mean, seriously, you got to wonder what people think about when they use tools like this to edit stuff. And I don't know that I'd ever want to see what that kind of stuff looks like on these. But
no.
Yeah.
So actually, it's like their email address, their login names, and SHA-512 hashed passwords. Also their country and whether they signed up for the newsletter and some other miscellaneous information. And it was all downloaded from an AWS bucket.
Oh God.
Which was probably...
Was it another unsecure bucket? I mean, it's like, come on.
It's become quite boring all of a sudden.
Lather, rinse, repeat, right? Now that's interesting though. I mean, the information they scraped is not high value, but it is useful, as we've talked about before, in like phishing scams, social engineering scams, all that information. Now you put something together that references, hey, this is a Pixlr or whatever, Pixlr. We need you to whatever, click here, or confirm your account or you're going to lose it, sort of things. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do with that information, even though it's not like credit card information or that sort of thing. Yeah,
definitely. That also reminds me, there was this other story this week or recently where there was this app called Fleek. It allowed people to exchange intimate photos with each other or something. It's been shut down, but people thought that they had deleted their photos, but they hadn't been deleted. So any people's very personal photos were available and downloaded, and again, it's another misconfigured AWS3 bucket.
Shocker. I got to say, I mean, fleek. So I don't really even know what that word means, other than it makes my teenage kids like twitch when I'm like, oh, that's on fleek, and I do it just just to be sure, just to mess with them. But I mean, really, I don't know. This sort of thing just seems to me like it would be ripe for problems, honestly. And why people do this, I just don't know.
That's because you're old. You're old.
It must be, man. I must just be so far out of this. Put me on the porch. I'll yell at kids to get off my lawn.
And finally, coin mining malware volume saw 53% in Q4 2020. So so Bitcoin continues to rise in value, and criminals carry on going after it.
Yeah, it was interesting there for a while. Ransomware was really rocking the world, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit, and cryptojacking software took over quite a bit. We saw a lot of cryptojacking software being dropped on machines and in organizations as Bitcoin and Monero and all those kind of went up in value. But then as ransomware started just really making money, and the cryptocurrency was so volatile, it was dropping a little bit. We saw far less of that happening and then being replaced with ransomware again. So it kind of went quiet. We still saw, cryptojacking being kind of left on there as the extra thing as they left, but all things considered, it really, really backed off. Well, now here we're in the surge of Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies again. And, they're firing back up because now it makes sense to do that, I guess. So I was a little surprised to see that, because I hadn't really thought that I was going to see that make a comeback again.
Yep. Don't call it a comeback, as LL Cool J starts.
Right.
I just realized that's a reference that's lost on you because you're uncultured. Anyway, thank you everyone for being with us this week. We hope you enjoyed our story roulette and putting Erich on the spot, and me. Actually, I only saw the headlines, and they were randomly generated from this last week. So thank you very much. Erich, any final words?
No, not.
Okay, no, not really. That's all we heard from him. So thank you very much. Stay secure, my friends.